Hello and welcome to Kicking Tires. My name is Jimmy,
And I'm Justin.
and today we got every single EV you can think of from the Shanghai Auto Show to talk about. So let's start diving into it with the first one here, Cadillac. This one's a looker, the Lyriq.
I think so. It's a really unique shape, and it's still got a distinctive Cadillac front end to it. We still got those vertical headlights and that kind of grille design, but it's pretty unique with that. I guess the striping going on with the grille.
Yeah.
Uh, Cadillac calls it lighting choreography. I'm not too sure what that means. I haven't seen this kind of in action, but I guess it
Oh,
does.
you
There we
want to
go.
see it in action? You say? I will show you
Yeah.
this video. Oh, I'm gonna
So
turn
it's
that audio off. Oh, that was watched it earlier, but it is so
yeah,
cool. It's like the new Audis.
yeah. So different light mapping effects with the front and rear. Damn, even in the lower markers on the bumper.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
there's a lot of really cool LED trickery that's on here. Um, I mean, I've seen this on like the current Audis, the Bugattis have it. Like it's really cool. Absolutely useless in terms of illumination or anything like that. But it's so cool to look at. You walk up to your vehicle, it's able to like welcome you and greet you. It
hmm
just it makes it a little bit more unique.
There's a wow factor there for sure. I do wonder if you were to get into an accident, how much more that is going to be. Maybe from the manufacturer standpoint, it may not cost that much, and they always throw stuff like this in, and then you get into a fender bender, and if you got to pay out of pocket, I mean, who knows, right? Like a traditional side marker costs, not that much, even with a luxury brand, it's not going to be that expensive. But now you have one with active LEDs on it.
Yeah,
I
it's
could
gonna
see that costing quite a bit more,
it's gonna be
at
pricey.
least with replacement. Yeah.
So the side profile of this, of course, is an SUV, but something that I saw that I found was very unique was the taillight on the rear of how distinctive it is. It goes kind of on the C pillar here rather
Mhm.
than like along the D pillar. Um, it kind of reminds me of the Escalade pickup, the ESV. Is it ESV? No, what
Yes.
whatever the pickup version was, I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I see the Jensen Interceptor. I think I mentioned this car a while back, but again, I see that L shape with the way all EVs, SUVs have to be curved in the back like that. Um, I don't know how I feel about it. Yeah,
It's not
I
too
don't
sure.
mind the curve. It's just the way that the light frames it and gives it a shape.
Yeah,
It's kind of strange to me. Overall, I mean, it's a pretty good looking car.
yeah. The
That steering
interior
wheel
is
is
nice.
insane. Look at
Yeah,
the buttons. Look at the buttons on the steering wheel, though. There's like a huge extension from the middle.
yeah. It's
Um,
that's gonna be weird to use.
it's too much. It's like half a single din on each side. Uh, it's it's a little bit too much button space on the steering wheel, and you would totally hit those if you're ever crisscrossing over your wheel. You're gonna touch one of those buttons and not know it. And obviously, being a Cadillac, they're gonna do haptic feedback or whatever with gloss black everywhere.
Yeah,
Um, Not a very well thought out steering wheel design, in my opinion. Um, Maybe it works better in practice. I don't know, but the rest of the interior is very clean and simple,
hmm
which is good among EV buyers, I guess.
it has a very similar to the display to the Escalade. It's the 33
Mm.
inch ultra wide display that stretches across the dash. It is it is beautiful. Although behind the wheel, the real estate that you have on the screen there, absolutely useless because you can't see that area. But it is divided, right? So you get a
Yeah,
little screen or a little section on the left, you get your cluster in the middle, then your infotainment on the right. It's definitely cool. Can't wait to see it. power wise is kind of weird because the initial one that they're launching here, it only has a motor for the rear, 304 horsepower. So it's not something that's like super powerful. Like most traditional like EVs are these days, give you like 500-600 horses. But this is a little less, which is going to be unique. Like it looks fast, but it's not going to be as quick.
Yeah, the ultimate power is not going to be there, but that's, not everyone is going to, no one is really going to ludicrous mode on a daily basis. I'm sure you're going to get decent power. It's not going to feel slow. And we got good range, good charging. DC fast charging means they're estimating 76 miles of range or 122 kilometers in just 10 minutes of charging. I don't know if that will wear down your battery quicker. It probably does, but that is really, really useful. I mean, that's always one of the obstacles with electric cars and is charge speed. So that is respectable. And I like one thing about these cars, which is as with a lot of GM EVs, is going to be that regen on demand. I don't know if you've driven one of these regen on demand vehicles before, but it's very intuitive with the paddle shift. Well, not paddle shift, paddle regen, and you're braking with your hand, which it sounds weird at first, and you're like, they're the only ones that really do this, but in practice it works really well. It's really predictable the way it breaks, and you earn a lot of range back that way, because you're forcing more regen, and you're only forcing it when you want to. Because I know a lot of people, you lift off of the accelerator and the car lurches forward. A lot of people don't like that about EVs. I like that regen on demand. It just feels like traditional braking, and you can see how much range you get.
Is it like when you press it, it kind of uses the regen? Like it increases regen, or does
increasing regen like quite significantly when you press it?
The Hyundai's does that.
Yeah.
The Ioniq, I remember, as well as the Kona. I think the Kona had it, but yeah, when you use the left paddle, you can press and hold that left paddle, and it goes to maximum regen mode. So, like if you're going down a hill, you can use that to stop the vehicle.
Yeah, it works. Like it will stop the vehicle, and you're not using any brakes, and you're charging it up, and it's just because a driver gets to control it when they want to. I think it's pretty neat.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on here because we got a lot of cars to cover. Let's head over from Cadillac to Lincoln. So this is a new Zephyr. It's an EV that's going to be mainly for China. I don't believe this one's coming to Canada. They haven't announced like full details on it, but
they're not going to bring it here. Yeah, I mean the Zephyr brand died a long time ago here. It barely existed, but yeah.
Sedans don't work in North America. I mean, it just doesn't. But this looks amazing. It's like, it's just so sleek.
Yeah, super nice. It does remind me of that other Chinese car, the Lynk & Co. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yes, I have seen that.
This is a better looking version for sure, but really good looking front end, very aggressive, very sporty, and it's aimed towards that professional audience, like business people, and yeah, I think sedans have a place. I mean, just look at the Model 3, right? As far as EV sales go, the Model 3 is very strong.
But the reason why Model 3 is strong is because it's like the entry level to Tesla.
Yes, there is a lot of cool factor or like fear of missing out with the Model 3. This one is not so much a traditional or maybe not as trendy of a vehicle. And so people won't buy for that. But I think sedans, I wouldn't rule out necessarily. I think there's just nothing exciting going on with the sedans. And then, I think manufacturers always play this, and they're always like, they put out a product that's not that compelling, aka Lincoln Zephyr or Ford Fusion. No, Ford Fusion, and then it doesn't do well, and then they'll say, "Oh, people don't want sedans." Well, the Fusion is not a great effort, and
I
neither
like.
was the Zephyr.
I actually really like the Fusion, but a
I
specific
did
one.
too. I got one as a courtesy car, and I really did like how quiet it was. It was pretty comfortable and it was pretty efficient. It was okay in a lot of, and even decent in a lot of ways, but it just like it doesn't excite me at all. And the interior is meh. Like the buttons are
Mm,
terrible. Like
yeah,
the whole center stack was
the
disgusting.
Sony system, yeah, it wasn't great.
Hmm.
But the exciting one was the Sport, which had the twin turbo V6, the
Yeah,
2.7. That was actually that
almost
was a
400
blast.
horsepower.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
the
was a
one I
blast.
had was a 2-liter turbo, which was
Mm.
still fast
It was more
and
than
all-wheel
plenty.
drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But moving from one sedan to another, Genesis also released their EV, their first EV, the G80. So they basically took the G80 of how it is in gasoline form and took out the gasoline bits and put in electrical motors and electrical bits where needed. So
Mhm.
it's more traditional in its looks, but I like the grill.
It looks like
I,
a fence.
I, I,
Now you can't unsee
yeah,
it.
no, I not really kind of see it. I don't mind the grill in this. I think it looks nice, but now I see a fence or a barbecue grate.
No, it looks good.
I think this is one of the better implementations. And the only reason why I think that is because it looks like the regular G80, and the regular G80 looks good. So
Hmm.
to me, it's fine. The only thing is because it is like a gasoline version of a vehicle turned electric, the range isn't going to be as long, and the motors that's in it is not going to be as powerful as some of its competitors. But I mean, even the regular G80 was never about power, so I don't think it's going to cause like that many problems. But
Hmm.
it just looks cool though.
Does, as with any other Genesis product. It's still not bad range. I mean, 265 miles. That's really respectable.
Yeah, it's more than sufficient for most people.
516 pound-feet of torque. I mean, I don't really know how the torque is calculated there, but that sounds like a lot. 4.9 seconds, 0 to 60.
It's definitely going to be fast enough for most people to kind of accelerate. But like, I just don't think like if you're going to compare this to a Model S, which you kind of can, like maybe a used one, because the pricing will be,
Mm-hmm.
around there. Even a used Model S, you're going to get just more tech bits and pieces on there that you
It's
won't
gonna be a
get on this.
sportier option, I think, for sure, as far as like handling and stuff. I think the Genesis, this makes sense because it's quiet. You bought this car because it has really impressive fit and finish, really good materials for the price, as with any other Genesis. But now you have electrification just to make things a little bit more everything. I mean, it's more luxurious in that sense. You just deliver power better, and it's a better image
Yeah.
as well compared to just like a big gasoline sedan. I think it may work. Uh, who knows? I mean, some people think sedans are done, but I think there is a place for it
I I think when they moved this electrical components and
to
maybe
the
a small
GV.
upgrade to the GV80, that's
Yeah,
where the money is going to be. Because
yeah.
the GV80 is we'll talk about that later, but that is the one to go for. Let's talk about Toyota. Toyota also released their electric SUV. This is a joint
Mm.
venture with Subaru. So basically, it's the electric BRZ, and they call it
Yeah.
the little b uppercase Z4X. Could
Yeah.
not have a more complicated name.
I know, and I was like, BZ4, like BMW Z4 X. Is this an all-wheel drive version of the Supra? It's got nothing to do with BMW. Yeah, Subaru Subaru doesn't really have much in terms of electrification yet. They have, sprinkling here and there.
Well, they
but
did the Crosstrek hybrid that didn't really work well.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see that we're working with Subaru to develop an all-wheel drive system. I don't really know what that entails. Because it doesn't really have like differentials or anything.
It's not a symmetrical all-wheel drive.
So it wouldn't really work that way. So I'm curious what Subaru's input is. Maybe some kind of traction control or equal length shaft. No, that wouldn't even make sense.
No.
This is very RAV4 in its design, I think.
Absolutely.
Surprisingly, yeah, like they didn't push this too far from what we kind of recognize as a Toyota right now.
Well, it's built on the same platform, that TNGA, the Toyota new global architecture platform. Yeah. So it's the same platform underneath. I mean, it's basically in every single Toyota these days. Sienna, Corolla, CHR, like it's all the same. The interior bugs me a little bit. I'll see if I can.
Speedometer or
the speedometer. It's kind of like
it's so far away.
Is it? I can't remember if it's Renault or Peugeot that has a separate cluster on the top, and they made a square. Or is this Citroen? Anyways, it's just weird on how that looks, and I can't envisioning like even on this view right here where you're in front of the steering wheel, the top of the steering wheel is blocking the bottom of the cluster. You don't see the full cluster. So, I mean, why reinvent the wheel if it's not going to be a round wheel? Like, it doesn't work.
Yeah, Toyota likes to do that. I mean, play around with speedometers and like clusters. Like they did it with the Echo, they did it with the RS, they did it with the Prius. And they're just like kind of like to try different things. As little as that company likes to really innovate,
as little. I love it.
Yeah, I mean they're good in their own ways, but they don't really take any risk aside from their cluster placements. I mean, I have my Prius. I do like it. It's really well done on the Prius, to be fair. On my Prius, the 2010. But yeah, this car is a bZ model, which means beyond zero, and they're aiming for a lot more models. I think 15 more EV models by 2025, 7 of them being bZ. bZ is a kind of weird line, but basically it represents being more than just carbon neutral and more than just zero emissions, beyond zero. It's about societal benefits that relate to driving just cleaner vehicles and cleaning up the air and stuff like that. Just less dependence on fossil fuels. I guess there is like, it's kind of like Sky Active. It's a philosophy, but I don't know if in practice it means too much. I wouldn't put too much weight into it, but we'll see. I mean, there's going to be a lot more bZ vehicles apparently. And I mean, when Toyota says they'll make something, they'll make something. Even if it's like a Mirai, like a hydrogen vehicle that no one will buy or appreciate, they will still make it. They don't waste time and resources at Toyota. They're very well thought out business. So stay tuned for a lot of cool EVs. I mean, there's rumors of Tesla partnerships, and there's a lot going on with Toyota in terms of EV. So yeah,
definitely a lot going on. But I'm just curious to see, if they'll innovate a little bit more than what we see here. Exactly what you said right from the start. It's a RAV4, except electrified, and that's. I mean, it's not a bad thing. I mean, the RAV4 looks good. I think the new RAV4 is a great looking vehicle. But I just wish they did a little bit more.
The front fender flare on this is ridiculous. Like, it's not a flare per se in a traditional sense, but it's like
it goes underneath
like a whole
headlight
patch. It goes underneath the headlight. It goes over the charge port.
Yeah,
it's way too big. The back one looks more normal, but yeah, the front one
that's
makes
a weird
no
part.
Sense.
The rear is actually it looks visually smaller than the front, which doesn't make sense to me.
It looks to us like You know those wide body kits like a Rocket Bunny or whatever, but flipped in reverse, like because the rear always has like the flares and like it's always a little bit bigger and more venting in the back because there's
Right.
just room to do it. Uh, but yeah, it looks funky, this car.
It's definitely funky. Going on to something just as funky. Session has
Oh,
expired. Mercedes has launched a new EQB. So they already have the EQC and the EQA. This is the brand new EQB. And as you guessed it, it's an electrified version of the GLB.
hmm makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's a really practical vehicle. Lots of height to it, which is probably good for EVs. I
Mhm.
think we like the GLB, right?
I like the GLB. I think it's
I like it.
unique, cool, and it's actually practical.
It's supremely practical, but I think there is one problem with the GLB, which is it doesn't have like the smartest looking face, if
Mm.
that makes sense. It just kind of has like a droopy eye look with the headlights a little bit too low relative to how tall. It looks like it has a big forehead. The eyes are a little bit too low relative to the overall height of the vehicle. This balances out quite nicely, I think. The EQB, it's a better looking, smoother looking car, and I think it will appeal to a lot of people who just, if you just want something practical, this makes sense.
Hmm. I think the face of how they updated the front end to make it the electric version, it's not
Mm.
bad. The rear, it's not bad. I don't mind it. But I prefer the regular GLB more in terms of its looks. Maybe I'm just more used to it, but this doesn't look as nice.
It looks a little bit forced.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're seeing is they and Mercedes has been guilty of doing this for, I would say, like almost a decade now, is just slapping one corporate front end on all their cars and just not doing too much to make it work.
Let's be
Um,
honest. Like most German automakers do the whole Russian doll thing, where the like every single like vehicle looks exactly like the other, just size
I can
difference.
tell a 3 and a 5 apart, but from
Can you tell
certain
a 5 and a
angles, I
7
can't
apart?
tell. The new one, yes. The new 7,
Okay.
yes. But yeah, no, the C, E, and S all look virtually identical from a distance.
Right.
At least from the front. From the side, you can kind of tell proportionally. It's a little bit different, but yeah. As far as EQ goes, this one, I think this size of vehicle makes sense in an
Mhm.
EV. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an urban vehicle for people that may have just a family that may want to pick up two more
Mhm.
people, just an extra two more people, because it
Yeah.
does have 7 seats, right? It's one of the few compact SUVs with with 3 rows, so it's definitely
Mhm.
unique in its market. But
Watch out, Kia Rondo.
yeah, no, the 3 people that still own a Kia Rondo. Moving on to another. Oh
You gotta
gosh.
agree to your cookies.
Yeah, of course I agree. Sure, yes.
Do you enable cookies?
Uh, the
This one is cool. The
another Mercedes
EQS.
electric vehicle. So this is the EQS, and as the name suggests, is the S class of the EQ lineup. But in my eyes, I don't think this is the S class. I think this is like the CLS,
CLS. Yeah.
right? It has the shape of the CLS. It's like actually it looks more like an egg than anything else because it's just rounded from front all the way to the back. But
Yeah.
but
And
it's
one
more
thing that's
CLS.
very offensive is how they cheaped out on the fender there. And when they did that two-tone paint job, it looks like they didn't paint the front bumper, or the front bumper came from a different car, and then they just, there's a
Oh,
break in there. Like,
I
why
see
does
what
that
you
not
mean.
connect? Like, that ruins it completely. I would say even if you kept the bumper black, it would look better. But because
Yeah,
there's a break in there, um, it just doesn't work. Like the two
I
tone
I see what
A
you mean.
pillar back is good,
Yeah,
and then you have that weird little bit there.
I see
It's
what you mean,
strange.
because it goes down on the front, a black or like a top part of that front bumper. It actually would make a
It's
lot
missing.
more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that's cool, the windows are pillarless. So just like the CLS rather than an S class.
Mhm.
I think it looks amazing though. Like looking at this is like the futuristic, you know, when you're looking at it compared to some like the EQB. You look at that, it's like, just another car. This is like, ooh, future. So it's optional all-wheel drive. The base is a rear-wheel drive model with 329 horsepower. If you get the all-wheel drive, it's 516. You can get the big battery for it, which is 100 and almost 8 kilowatt-hour battery. So it actually has decent range, which I didn't write down. So I'm not sure what that is on here. But the coolest thing I would say about this is the interior. As it is a Mercedes and S class kind of the EQ version here, they put in something known as the hyper screen. And with the
Yeah.
hyper screen, you actually have a screen that goes the entire dash, but they separate it into 3 different kind of sections or pods. 12.3 inch for the cluster, a 17.7 inch for the central screen, and another 12.3 inch for the passenger. I mean,
Mhm.
we're getting to a stage where passengers need a screen now. Like
Yeah.
I I kind of understand in some areas, like, oh, pull up the navigation to see things, but a 12.3 inch screen for the passenger with their own "Hey Mercedes" in there, so they can say "Hey Mercedes" and control their screen in front of them without touching it. Like,
Yeah, why does it? Yeah, it's kind of weird. It has like its own radio. Looking at the icon, it's the same. The same shortcuts just moved over. It's like, was it really that tough for you to use a center screen? I mean, the driver's using it the same way. It
it's
doesn't make
so
sense.
far.
Yeah. One thing to note, that makes this not quite a CLS is the headroom in the back. Right?
Yes.
It's noticeably taller proportionally than a CLS. So I think they did that. It's kind of a win-win, really. It looks like it might be a hatchback too, but the that's going to help with aerodynamics and rear headroom. Kind of win-win compared to a traditional S-Class saloon shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See if I can. There's 260 pictures in here, and all of it's from the outside, and it all looks exactly the same. Let's see if I can find a picture of the inside here. I think Mercedes has always been, like, for their S classes, has always been one of those technological marvels, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
all the S classes, like, first to have this, first to have that. And looking at this is actually leading the way, right? Um, Audi's like e-tron GT can't really compete with this in terms of luxury. Yes, it's going to be faster and whatnot, but this is going to be the luxury or not SUV, the luxury sedan that you're going to get. And BMW doesn't even have anything yet. Here's a picture of the inside. It it almost looks like a 56K here. It's so slow. Anyways, but
I'm having that issue too.
the the interior, it's absolutely beautiful. Like, it's so simplistic. Like, there's not a lot of
Mhm.
buttons, but there are buttons for things that you normally would like use, like the seat controls, for example, or the power mirrors. Like that stuff is readily available at your fingertips. You don't have to dive into menu for, unlike some other brands.
Mhm. Other electric luxury sedans.
Yeah, that's made in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not all gloss black, which is nice. It is a lot of screen, but at least screen doesn't scratch as easily as typical gloss black plastics.
Yeah. And as you can see here, this is a picture of the rear seats, and we don't know how tall she is there in the back, but it definitely looks like she has enough room.
Taylor Swift is not short.
That's not Taylor Swift.
It's Taylor Swift from Wish.com.
But I can confirm that it is a hatch because we can see that here. You
Yeah.
see the break. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a small opening. It's a narrower opening as far as a hatch goes, but comparable to what we see with the Panamera, the normal Panamera, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same kind of shape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Definitely very nice. But let's go on to something I think is even nicer. In terms of its exterior looks, like this is the Audi A6 E-Tron. This is man, this is beautiful.
The first good-looking A6. I'm gonna offend a lot of people with that because it's not to say A6s have been ugly before, but they're just so uninspired. They're such a lazy design car since day one. It's just the A4 looks good, and then they just kind of, maximize plus 10% here, 15% here, and then
that's it.
And large, but somehow it just gets like more boring in the mix. Even with the fancy S models and V10, whatever, it's not a good-looking car in my opinion. No. It's not pretty. It doesn't excite anyone by the way it looks. This is really cool, but obviously we have one big issue with it, which is this is an A7. Like this is not an A6.
This is definitely an A7. The roofline suggests that it's an A7 rather than a 6, but I understand why they have to make the roofline this way. It's for efficiency, right? It's an EV. It has to be efficient. But one thing I'm going to ask you about here, okay, if you cover up the front end, on the side profile, the between the wheels, doesn't that remind you of Jag?
Yes.
Right? Because like the I-Pace is very similar to that. It has that kind of
that stripe, the swoosh.
Yeah. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it's very, very similar and it has that kind of overall shape. I mean, it's not bad in any way. I love how that I-Pace looks.
But that design motif is straight off of Jag's EVs.
Yeah.
But the rear three-quarter view is 100% A7. Just the overall proportions, which is not a bad thing. It's not just for efficiency. I think styling-wise, practicality-wise, it just works. It's not that recognizably Audi, oddly enough.
Yeah, it's kind of missing the traditional Audi like details. I think it's the grille. I mean, it's still an enormous grille.
The lights are not. They're very squinty, more so than traditional Audi. And then the grille, the big vent below the headlight is somewhat Audi, but it's a little bit much on an EV per se.
So something that's really cool about those front lights, yes, they're super squinty. But they're individually controlled and projector style. I saw this one video of when they announced this, where they parked it in front of this white wall, and they were playing a game that was projected using those headlights. Like
that is sick.
This is where technology has come to. You can use your headlights as like it's just black and white. I mean, like or dark bits and illuminated bits, but it. Like how cool is that?
It's that accurate and that precise that it can map out really fine details,
and it can project onto the ground. So if pedestrians are around, you can project on the ground that you're turning right or left. Like there's really cool things about those headlights and taillights that you never thought is useful.
Keep it at the front three-quarter or front quarter view. That is a Jaguar. That is an XF. That right?
If
I look at it,
if Jag made a XF electric, that's exactly how it would look like.
Let's just play with the grill a little bit. I mean, that is very Jag.
Here, let me.
Jag traditionally does have squinty lights.
Let me pull an I-Pace next to it. Yup.
Yeah, and I mean, how about the XF, right? Jaguar, or even the new. Well, XF is not the latest and greatest. But what's a little sports car? The F Type. F Type's got that squintier front. I do see some Jaguar elements there.
Yeah.
For sure. Jaguar always had the big grill in the side there, and the sharper headlights.
Yep, that's a Jag.
Yeah, I can see that being a Jag. Yeah.
But I mean,
it's good looking. I mean,
it's
one's gonna.
Nothing wrong with it. It's absolutely beautiful.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this looks a lot better than. Oh, this is the projector I was talking about. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can play a game, while you're sitting there waiting for your vehicle to charge.
Yeah, I mean, this will be an exciting EV, I think.
Absolutely, and it looks a whole lot better than the e-tron. Once again, nothing bad about the e-tron. It's an Audi Taycan, but it's like the way I see it. This is actually how Audi's supposed to be, right? That is a Porsche, but with Audi clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Let's move on from electric cars to gasoline cars.
This one is huge. Not in terms of size, but in terms of news. Like, it's not something that no one really expect. Well, we did get teasers on the way.
Oh,
this was coming.
So many teasers.
A lot, yeah. But it is like it really shakes up the industry, is what I mean to say.
Absolutely. So this is the new Hyundai Santa Cruz is what we're talking about. The new, don't say pickup truck because they don't want you to say that. It's the sport adventure vehicle, or the SAV, brand new from Hyundai. And it's kind of like taking the best parts from the Honda Ridgeline and the best parts from the Subaru Baja and putting that together.
Making it look good. Again,
what are you trying to say? The Baja looked amazing. I know you want a Baja.
Is amazing.
I know you want a Baja.
It's just not good looking. Also, the whole sport adventure vehicle thing, not to be confused with BMW's SAV, which is a sport activity vehicle.
Oh, sorry.
BMW coined that phrase 20 years ago, but here's Hyundai with sport adventure vehicle. Yeah.
So I believe this is. So every single truck owner is going to hate it like they hate the Ridgeline. Simple as that. Because they don't understand where the Santa Cruz comes in. It's the perfect SAV, or mini truck, if some would call it, for someone that lives in a city that doesn't necessarily need a pickup, but wants a pickup for those weekend trips.
Mm-hmm. Because
this is the perfect size. You can still park it. You have an F-150 with a 6.5 foot long bed. I remember there was one time that you were up at SFU, you took a picture and you were up on the curb and you still didn't fit.
Mm-hmm. That truck is almost 4 feet longer than this. So it's completely...
It's a smart car more than this.
Yeah. Pretty much. This is 195.7 inches long, which is typical mid-size sedan these days. Your Camrys, Accords, it's in that range. So it's very normal size vehicle. You don't have to look for special parking spots or anything. Even a Tacoma, as small as those trucks are, you're gonna have a harder time finding parking because it's still a longer vehicle. Yeah. This is at least a foot and a half shorter. Where you do lose that is not so much an interior space. It doesn't look super roomy. It's not, like your typical midsize or compact crossover even. It's smaller, but it's not really smaller than your typical Colorado, Tacoma.
Yeah.
It's definitely smaller than like a
Ridgeline.
The Ridgeline or the Jeep,
yeah.
I would say. But no, this is a usable back seat. It's not the worst for sure.
Definitely,
especially given how it's so much smaller. And the base engine, I would say, is a little bit disappointing / why would you get it?
Yeah.
190 horsepower in a car. I guess it's a car. Should I call it a car? 190
I don't think that'd be
horsepower
fine. Yeah.
in something that's over 4,000 pounds, because it's gonna be heavier than like a Rav4. So it's gonna be over 4,000 pounds. Not quite as heavy as your traditional body on frame SUV or trucks, I should say. Those are kind of 4,500 and up, but it's not light, and so 190 horsepower. I don't think that's sufficient
No,
for really
it's gonna work
this type
harder.
of vehicle. Yeah, it's not gonna sound pleasant.
Yeah.
Overall, it's a good look too, right? It's got that Tucson front end with the really cool headlights.
Yep.
Those headlights, when you turn them off, they just look like one big grill.
Yeah, they
Which is-
integrate right back into the grill, which is really, really cool. They
Yeah.
don't unfortunately have. Oh no, there it is.
There we
This
go.
looks like part of the grill. Like
Mhm.
that's super cool.
It's seamless. Yeah.
Yeah.
The rear has a bit of a style to it, which you don't get on a lot of pickup trucks. A lot of pickup trucks are just a box with some taillights on it. It's just a rectangular design. One thing that was kind of interesting in the specs is, so it's a 4-foot bed, but at the lower part of the bed, if you just needed something that's a little bit over 4 feet, it's like 52 inches. So you got a few extra inches, and the way they can do that is, your seat back is slanted, I guess, and so the back, or the wall of the bed, I should say,
Probably scalloped
is
a little.
slanted. Yeah, and that helps a little bit. So 4 feet, with the bed down, that's a usable amount of space. It's not what we traditionally see with pickup trucks, not even older pickup trucks.
Yeah.
They weren't this small, but it's bigger than a Baja. If that's yeah.
But a Baja, you can have the middle part that goes down, then you can stick things all the way
Yeah.
through, which you can't do in this.
Port. Yes.
But what's kind of cool
a missed opportunity.
Yeah, it kind of is. What's kind of cool though is the bed itself. It's kind of like the Mojave, or sorry, I shouldn't say Mojave, the Gladiator.
Colorado. No.
Gladiator,
Yes.
yeah, where the tailgate itself, you don't have to fold it all the way down. There's like a middle position.
Oh yes.
You can have 4x8 sheets that sit on the tailgate as well as on the wheel wells. So you still can have longer items in there. And because of that kind of integrated tailgate idea, it makes things a little bit easier to handle.
Yeah, and it's got a big trunk underneath. Well, not as big as the Ridgeline, obviously, because it's a smaller truck.
Yeah.
Or SAV, but it's a really usable trunk that's kind of under the bed floor, which is really good. I think you don't get that in traditional pickup trucks.
Yeah. Lockable, weather tight seal with a drain hole, so you can use it as a cooler.
Yeah.
It's cool. It really is.
I find the tonneau cover, the roll-up tonneau cover, a little bit strange. I saw a video of it in action, and there's like a long string or
there's like a rope thing that you pull to close it if you need. Yeah.
I didn't think that was the most efficient use of space, and it just doesn't seem that premium. But apparently, it can hold a decent amount of weight on top of it as well.
Yeah, I think they were saying like 200 pounds.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of weight, I mean, with the 2.5 liter turbo, which is the optional engine, you're going to get 275 plus horsepower. We don't know the exact number yet, and over 310 pounds-feet of torque.
Yep,
which is a lot in this segment. This doesn't have a segment, but it's a lot for this type of little vehicle. It's a lot of utility. Up to 5,000 pounds towing capacity with the turbo engine. 3,500 with the 2.5, but 5,000, which, funny enough, I had a friend that was looking for, he's got a Tucson. He has the Santa Fe Sport. And he was asking me about trailer hitches last week, and he wanted to tow a RV to go camping, and they're all just slightly over 3,000 pounds. Like, even a smaller, there is like a really small RV that he could tow, but they're all at least 3,000 pounds, which if you only have a 3,500 pound towing capacity, it's not safe to tow that. But if you get the turbo all-wheel drive, that's where that extra little towing capacity is going to help. Lots of payload on this thing.
Yeah,
1,700 pounds.
1,700 pounds is huge. That's more than
It's
like
huge.
Ridgeline, more than Tacoma, more than Colorado. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's over half a ton. I mean, if you want to put it that way. Yeah,
I think
well over half a ton.
I think this is one of those things that like I can't wait for this to come out. I have a contact at Hyundai, and she mentioned that this is going to come out a little bit later this year. The new Tucson is coming out first, and we're gonna get through some of the driving aspects of that car first. But this is something I can't wait to get behind the wheel of.
Yeah, I can see this having like an aftermarket appeal too, like just making this a little bit more rugged. It's already pretty rugged looking, but in these pictures we have, I think, 20-inch all-terrain wheels and tires. It just a little bit strange on 20s. It's more of that urban look for sure, but I think put some fatter rubber on it, lift it a little bit. This will be pretty exciting. I mean, we have cars like the Forester, Crosstrek, Outback, RAV4 that people like to do those kind of light, soft-roading mods to. I think this is going to be one of those. And there's such a culture now around overlanding.
Yeah.
These type of vehicles, there is a demand for them.
For sure.
That just it's such an untapped market.
And
that
I'm sure you remember from the off-road videos that you keep watching, Hyundai's all-wheel drive management system. It's pretty good.
Very good.
They're pretty good. This has a central diff lock, so I mean, it's not going to be like rock crawling or anything like that. But when things get a little tougher, I think this can still handle it. Like, I kind of want to try it. Like, I want to take one like off-road, like off-road. Not
I feel
just,
like they wouldn't give it much underbody protection.
No, definitely not.
Kind of the issue because it is a Tucson at the end of the day.
Yeah,
but that's something the aftermarket can take care of if someone really wanted to. No, and we got a roof rack or roof rails. It looks like on there. It's got that interior. When we talked about this when we announced the Tucson, which it's got that gloss black slab, but I don't know, on this kind of vehicle I don't mind it as much. It's not the most inspired, not the most inspired design, but it doesn't have to be on a little truck like this. I think
the only thing I'm just not sure of is because it's the same Tucson interior. Not only is it like you get the widescreen, which is nice, but below that you get touch controls for your climate controls. So I'm just thinking, like, if you're sometimes you're going to be wearing gloves because you're going in and out of the vehicle, right? You're probably not going to be taking off your gloves all the time. If you need to change any of those touch controls with gloves, it's unless you get specialized touchscreen gloves, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and I mean, this for sure would not fly with any traditional pickup truck, but they're not aiming for a traditional pickup truck audience, so who knows, it may work. I don't think it will be a deal breaker necessarily, because if you want this size and this type of vehicle, you really have no options. I mean, Envoy XUV, there's nothing in this size.
We gotta stop suggesting weird cars to people.
I know, but I don't know why that car came up, but I don't remember
we talked about it a few weeks back. I remember the conversation. Then we started looking on Craigslist to see if we can buy one. Yeah, that was a bad call.
It's quite the rabbit hole we normally go on, but this I think there's a lot of potential on this. It's not your traditional buyer. It's not even traditional brand. As far as, like, if you're looking for a utility vehicle, you don't really go towards any of the Korean models. And I think this is important as far as setting a new direction for this company. That they're doing well in a lot of other regards.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about their luxury division. Let's move on to the next
Perfect segue.
topic,
Love it.
which is the GV80.
So yeah, just the past week I posted the Genesis GV80 review, and so I've been a big fan of Genesis ever since their launch. The Genesis sedan, I was like, oh, this is nice. And then they put the 5-liter V8. I was like, ooh, this is really nice. Then they moved to the G lineup, so G80 and then the G70, as well as the old G90. I thought every single vehicle that they put out was perfect. Like it's really, really, really good. Then everyone wants SUVs. And of course, they responded with this, the GV80, the mid-size. So this is to compete with like X5 and GLEs, except it's priced like $20,000 less than them. It's an amazing looking SUV. Some people think it's like a fake Bentley. The 2 weeks that I had it, I had two different versions. I had the 2.5 liter as well as the 3.5 liter. So I got two different trims. Both times people are like, hey, is that the new like Bentley? I'm like, no, it's the new Genesis. It's like, what's that? I'm like, and then you have to explain what that is. But it is something that catches a lot of people's eyes because of the way that it looks and the presence that it has on the road.
Yeah, and I mean, this Genesis is where Lexus was when they first came out. Although Genesis has been around for a decade now. Now they're really getting into their stride. This is to think about it. I think when Lexus first released the RX, that was kind of a bit of a game changer too. It was just undercutting the European models and just offering like something different, but like really cool and like unique and premium at the time. Like the first gen Lexus RX interior is still very nice for 1999 standards.
Yep.
And RX kind of lost its way over the years. It still sells volume wise, just because that is the model that people get, because you're not really cross shopping between that and an X5 or a GLE. But that car has gotten so uninspired, and now something like this steps in. I wonder if they're worried. I wonder.
I'm sure they are. I mean, in terms of size wise, this is more competes with like the GX, but the GX has been around since like what 2004 or so. Like it's been around forever and hasn't changed. Like they need something new. Lexus definitely needs something new.
RX 350L. Yeah, as far as like interior volume goes, I think that's probably the closest.
That's more closer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like it's not the same.
It's not,
like,
they don't have anything to. Lexus doesn't have anything to compete not only with Genesis but any of the Europeans. I think in this category right. At least, and Land Cruiser is kind of getting LX. Sorry, is kind of getting phased out as well. Yeah. This is. How much is this one as tested?
Ooh, you're asking all the hard questions. I think I wrote it down here. So as tested in Canadian dollars, this one here is 85,000. The base is 64,000.
64, yeah. And this one's got the 3 rows.
Yeah,
I really like that summoning feature with the key. I know you mentioned in the video that it's like not that useful, but if you have like, this is a pretty big car with big doors, and there's spots that it's going to be tough. And so that was not so elegant just now. How the carpet just tumbles back.
The summon to move the vehicle fore and aft, I believe that's useful. But to the smart park system, or it's not called smart park, it's something similar. But you press and hold the remote outside of your vehicle, and it's able to stall or parallel park. I think that's pretty useless. It just takes so long. And I don't see myself ever like just having like the time or the want just to step out of the vehicle to press a button, where I can be sitting inside pressing another button. It's the same thing, except it just looks cooler from the outside. You know, that's really what it's all about.
Well, no, my point is if you have to stall park automatically, like let's say if you were to park in there yourself, you have to then get out of that car. So let's say, for example, you were not able, it's too tight and you cannot get out of the car. The car physically fits, but you cannot. That's where it would be kind of neat.
Yeah.
The parallel parking one doesn't really make sense to get out of the car to do it, because obviously you can open your door, and if you can stand outside waiting for it to happen, like the car has like those parking pilot or assist things anyways.
Yeah.
There's no point for that. But I think maybe not so much in North America, but we got to think globally as well. The stalls are a lot tighter.
That's why I say like the summoning forward as well as pushing the vehicle automatically backwards is definitely a feature that I like. But just the in general parking may not be something that most people are interested in. But what people do probably want to hear about is the 3.5 liter. It's probably not the one I would get. The 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, that's actually the same engine that's going to be in that Santa Cruz that we talked about. It's actually the engine I would say is the one to get, because it's actually very, very smooth. Like, it matches with the overall vehicle a little bit more. You're not asking this vehicle, even with the 3.5 liter, you're not asking this vehicle to be a sports car. It doesn't deliver in that sense. But the additional money that you're putting for the V6, if you're just getting it for the V6, I wouldn't say so. If it's for the other features, it's possible, because with the V6, you get the adaptive suspension where it actually looks at the road to see if things are, there's potholes or whatever. It's able to adjust the suspension as needed. That's pretty cool. But I wouldn't get it just for the engine itself.
And
of course,
they've done a good thing with the design. I think that you can't really tell too much of a difference between the base model and the top of the line. Aside from the wheels, of course, the base wheels are kind of bland, but they still look okay. But overall, you don't feel like, oh, if I got the low end one, that you're really, because some SUVs you can really tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like even with Range Rover, Mercedes, BMW, you can tell when that's the base model. I think with the range is not quite as big on a Genesis. It's only 20,000 from lowest to top. But yeah, I think in the mid-size segment, we do see sometimes, especially with the BMW, actually, yeah, with the BMW. If you get a non-M one, it's two different cars.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, honestly, like, should not be drinking bubbly, but I just think Genesis has really knocked it out of the park with this the GV80. I'm more interested to see the GV70, because that's the type of vehicle that I would personally get, and it's the correct like size for me. I think the GV80 is just a little bit on the bigger side. I don't personally really need a 3-row or that extra trunk space. I think the GV70 is pretty perfect, and the GV70, because you can get that with a 3.5 liter, I feel like that's going to be like a little bit more sporty
model.
Yeah, right? Because it's going to be smaller, it's going to be more agile, it's going to be lighter. It makes a little bit more sense to get the 3.5 on that, but I think I'll be more than happy to get just the regular 2.5 liter turbo as well.
Yeah, the GV70 might be the nicer or the smarter buy. It's kind of like Lexus, as I was talking about the RX, which I think is kind of, people aren't excited about anymore. And the one selling point was really, okay, this is the most reliable one in its segment. But if you had the previous gen, you don't really need to get the new one, because the tech is not groundbreaking on the RX. Whereas if you think about the NX, that car has incredible resale value. I think people are excited about the NX more so than the RX. RX used to have super strong resale, and now it's not so strong. Used RX, like if you were to look at a 2015, don't really go for much more than an equivalent year mileage NX.
Mhm.
So the smaller one, I think people are. It's just interesting how the market works like that. I think there's maybe a bigger market for the smaller vehicle, at least here in the lower mainland. The GV80, I see what you mean about the size. It's got presence because of it. It's actually not too big though. I think
No, it's definitely
um,
not too big, but
yeah,
it's a little bigger than what I need, and I think
yeah.
that's where it comes down to.
But the third row, yeah,
You only get the third row with the V6, and the third row is really tight. Like it's good for kids, but not much more than that. Like even if you're shorter, if you're back there for shorter journeys, sure, but it's not something that I would, squish my friends into.
fair enough. It's no Palisade, I guess.
Definitely not. Palisade is huge in a third row.
Yeah. I love the interior, the colors and the different materials. Yeah, even the steering wheel is not like sporty in any way, but
No, not
I
at all.
think they know what they're trying with this Genesis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. I think it's a buyable car. It's.
For sure.
I don't think it will. I think they will do well because that's always been my concern with any Korean model is the depreciation. But I think this one being quite a standout, I think it will do well.
Yeah. And here you can see the auto park in action. I'm
That's
standing
not too
out.
slow, eh?
This is 2 times faster.
Oh, okay.
I sped up the video.
I'm like, I know people that park slower than that easily. for
This
for
video was
sure.
sped up. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's definitely cool. I think as a brand, Genesis is doing like some amazing things. Back when I talked about the G80 EV, I think when this comes out with the EV model, or at least like a hybrid or plug-in hybrid, it's definitely something to consider. Like
Mhm.
the brand itself, what they offer, 5-year bumper to bumper, and they also take care of like maintenance, like your
Mhm.
traditional oil changes and stuff like that. You call them, they'll come by
They
your
come
house,
get you.
come get your
Your
vehicle.
car. Yeah.
They will give you another Genesis of equivalent size, and take your car away, service it, and bring it back to you.
Mhm.
Like no other manufacturer does that. Like
Yeah, and I mean, we make fun of it for looking like a Bentley, but it doesn't. It looks better than a Bentley, and it has its own look, to be fair. Like, this is what a Bentley should look like, but it doesn't. And it's got its own identity, which I think is really important because that's kind of why the original Genesis sedan and the EQS, like those cars flopped, I think, because they were in just not unique. Like they're just not compelling in any way. They look like a knockoff, and that's the problem, right? You don't want to compete with designer brands with something that looks like a knockoff.
yeah,
And I
that's
don't think this looks like a knockoff. I think this has its own distinct identity. That grill, those lights, front and rear, just the way the wheels fill up the car. It's all like it's its own thing, and I think that's super important as far as branding goes.
you're absolutely right of like the older Hyundai just being knockoffs, because like if we remember, Hyundai made the Azera, I think it was called, or
Hmm.
no, the Monty, where it was like a
That's a
Jag S
Kia, yeah.
type. It was everything. But you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. Like even like if we look at Craigslist right now, this is a 2013 Equus for $16,000.
yeah.
You can't buy a 2013 FRS for $16,000.
And this is almost $100,000,
This,
MSRP car.
yeah, like this is an enormous, beautiful sedan that has every single feature that you can think of, and it's $16,000,
Yeah,
sixteen thousand Canadian
it
dollars.
looks like a knockoff LS. Like there's nothing there's no way to you can't deny it. Even if you're Genesis, like you can't deny that this thing looks like the LS that came 5 years before it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the problem. If it looks like the current LS, then all good. But this looks like the '03 LS
Yeah.
with a facelift, and that was the problem. Only the Korean consulate bought this car. I think I don't know anyone else who would have.
I've looked into it because it was so cheap. I was like, oh, maybe I can get a very luxury sedan.
Well, and you know what's crazy is here in the Lower Mainland, that Equus is probably more rare than any Lamborghini,
It
Ferrari, or
probably
McLaren. It's quite the
Probably
unicorn. I think I take a picture every time I see one. I'm like, holy crap! Someone bought an Equus, and then yeah,
Well, I
16,000 though.
16,000 is nothing, and that's what this
Yeah.
posted for. Like you go and talk to the guy, but like, hey, no one's ever come to see this car. I'll give it to you for 10 grand if you want it right now.
Yeah.
But I think that's really it for today. We're just over the hour mark. Anything else you want to add for
No, I
any
think
of
we're
the
perfect.
topics
We're
that we've
right
gone
on
over
time.
today?
Yeah. No, we're good.
We're good. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And yeah, we'll go over some more auto news and a whole bunch of other stuff next week.
Yeah.
We'll
See
talk to you guys
next
then.
week. Bye.